The American fiasco in Afghanistan has shown that you may be the most powerful, but if you do not have a proper understanding, if you do not know the narrative, then you may still go completely haywire. And today we are going to do a deep discussion. So don't be scared about the term deep, because the expert that we have today, Jayant Kalawar ji, will make it extremely simple for you and will show you the way to go, the Hindutva way. So please subscribe quickly to the channel, all those who are watching. And also, you may go to our descriptions where our new exciting subscription plans are there for domestic subscriptions as well as international subscriptions, and also the social media handles and a contribution link as well. Let's go. So, namaste everyone, and welcome Jayant Kalawarji and Vibhuti Ji as usual. Because if it's Wednesday 10 p.m., it has to be Shri Vibhuti Jha. Just to introduce Jayant Ji to this Wednesday 10 p.m. show. This Wednesday 10 p.m. show is between me and Vibhuti Ji with some guests, sometimes just the two of us. And it is mainly directed to the diaspora, because most of our discussions otherwise happen in Hindi, but this one is always in English, because it is to an international audience. So let me just contextualize this discussion.
आप म्यूट हो गए संजय जी, you got muted.
Okay, sorry. I was just saying that the title is very exciting. It says, Make Hindutva Rule the World by Changing the Social Theory. And this changing the social theory idea is what I got from an essay by Jayant Ji, which has the unlikely title of Death in Three Acts. So what I would do is that I would go to Jayant Ji and ask him to dilate on this death in three acts, which he says ecocide, that is climate change. Then he says fratricide, that the inequalities of wealth. And then he says uh, suicide. And there he brings in the AI and biotech. And he also goes into the genesis of the European Enlightenment. On that, I will reserve my questions for later. So I would request Jayant ji to please do this in about 10 to 12 minutes so that we can move further.
Okay. Namaste ji, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. May I start with the prarthana?
Sure. Yes. Wonderful.
Om Sri Matre Namaha, Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste Sharde Devi, Kashmira Purvasini, Prahimam Prarthaye Nityam, Vidya Danancha Dehi Me. I offer whatever I say at this session at the feet of the Devi and my gurus. If anything positive comes out of it, it will be due to their blessings. All errors are my personal failings. Pranams to everyone, Sanjay ji, Vibhuti ji, and the audience and the viewers. Sanjay ji has set a huge bar for me today, taking me all the way up to quantum physics. So, which is why I need the blessings even more. Well, let's see how far I go. This opportunity, this allows me to start the gaining momentum. So death in three acts. So European Enlightenment, I'm deconstructing European Enlightenment, and I'm saying basically, since this is 10 to 12 minutes, I'll see maybe it will be much shorter than that, and you can ask me questions and I can dilate more.
Yes, yes, sure, sure.
Yeah, in short, um, um, the European Enlightenment came after about 1,000 years, 1,000+ years of Dark Ages, which came about due to a shift to dogma in the Roman Empire with adoption of Christianity as their quote-unquote religion, as their dogma. So they monopolized what cultural beliefs and social norms people could follow. And by 380 AD, it started in 325 AD, and by 380 AD, they had decreed that anyone of the other religions, quote unquote, because there were only cultural traditions. This thing about religion being that one truth, etc., came from that council that Constantine put together in 325 AD, and then it got affirmed and pushed out in 380 AD. So after 380 AD, there was mass persecution, as you know, of anyone who was not following the particular set of norms and dogmas of Christianity, quote unquote, as dogmatized by the Roman Empire. So, and hence after that, of course, it became the Holy Roman Empire. So the Dark Ages that followed due to persecution, just to give you an idea, just in 150 years from 410 AD to about 550 AD or so, Rome was sacked 3 times by its own people, by people from Europe, as the empire could not support their the economic situation, because they were more concerned about beliefs, who was believing and acting out in certain ways, etc. So that was the dogmatic aspect of it. Then it took about 1,000 years by the time they got to about 1500s or so. So in the meanwhile, because they were persecuting others, one other religion started, which also had to become dogmatic, and that was Islam in Arabia. And because they were under attack, they became aggressive and militaristic to protect themselves and expand. So these two dogmatic theocratic states, this process is really, we have to go away from this word religion, and it's a state-making process. The state-making process is based on dogmas. And it allows the people who control the state to rule their people. That's what it is. So the state-making process, being dogmatic and inherent in it are conflicts, and hence the Dark Ages. Now the Dark Ages ended in about 1500 with the so-called European Enlightenment. I call it so-called because people, especially Hindus, think, oh, it's enlightenment, that's something enlightened must be coming out of it. It's really materialist. And the outcome of that was some extremely brutal wars coming out of as Protestant Reformation took place. There was a pushback at the Holy Roman Empire within Europe. And as Protestant Reformation took place, there were brutal civil wars across Europe. More than 30% of Europeans they killed themselves, each other. So the way out of it was to then come up with some way where there could be economic stability. Literally, they went around burning crops, burning houses, etc. So there was not only starvation, but also plagues, etc. Now, coming out of it was a challenge, and that's what Hobbes and others, and that there is a whole republic of letters, etc., that went into it, and it's called Renaissance, where certain intellectuals came up with a way of saying how are we going to get out of it. That's where two things happened. One is they came up with a way of differentiating themselves from the church, the Holy Roman Empire. So the material world could be ruled by them. And they came up with a materialist conception. And that materialist conception, the core of it, was that nature was inert. Previously, under the Catholic Church, there was this God out there, some abstract God who was creating all this, and nature was still God's creation, and therefore there was some caretaking that was required. There was some amount of interaction between humans. Humans, of course, were the center of everything, of this small universe that God had created, and everything else was created for humans. But the exploitation level was not as high. Once Hobbes declared that the materiality, that nature was inert, exploitation of nature became possible. And the way to allow it, they then monopolized the next level of knowledge production. Until then, the production of knowledge itself was not yet controlled by the state. The knowledge production came under control, specifically in about 1650 or so. I reference a specific date, etc., where the British Crown formed the Royal Academy of Sciences. And the Royal Academy of Sciences then said no one could do scientific research or empirical research. People used to do empirical research, can come up with their own things. That was called alchemy. It's not something to be done. It had to pass through peer review. So that peer review is the peer groups. And who are the peers? The first experiment was done by Boyle. We all are taught this Boyle's law, etc., by Boyle. It was actually done in a huge laboratory in his palatial accommodations. He was a lord himself. And there were 12 peers who looked at it and said, yeah, there are no ghosts or anything, etc. here. It's all materiality and it works. So they signed off. So since then, the Royal Academy of Sciences took over the monopoly of who could do science, quote unquote, and science with a capital S, and who could produce knowledge. And that's the Western Academy, which we have inherited. Since that day, the very first set of people, members of the Royal Academy of Sciences, was controlled by through a conversation. It's a very interesting conversation back and forth with Hobbes and Boyle and with the Crown. And in the process, this academy made it so that whoever were the members were the only ones who could admit other members. And that's something that's continuing till today. It's only 375 years ago or so. And the difficulty is no one else who doesn't subscribe to their way of thinking, to their lens, doesn't get admitted. So why are we surprised? Why are we surprised that we don't get admitted? Because we are the other. We don't subscribe to their materialist perspective. Coming out of that, the science and technology, and specifically there's another thing that happened which helped the process, and that is debt financing. So the debt financing, the Hanseatic League, while they were going through dark ages, there were merchants who were doing trading, who were trading both with China and India, and they were able to harbor surpluses. Some of the civil wars actually were financed for bankrupt kings to go fight wars. That's where it started, where debt financing could actually be used to fight wars. And they got into deeper debt, and therefore the financiers gained control. So that aspect came into the funding of science from then on. So what were the experiments? Yes, one could say there were some high-level scientific discoveries, etc., made, but all the applications, the technology that came out, were specifically funded so that it could help gain returns for capital. So, which is why, again, you see a techno-financial trend, which increasingly goes to the next step. So, three things that happened in the process, if you notice, is the very first thing is ecocide, which you talked about. The ecocide is nature is inert, and here we have all this funding to come up with technologies at the top level which benefit finance capital, and we can go and destroy nature. And it's for all of us to see what's happening. Second is, I call it fratricide. I don't call it genocide, because from my Davies lens, and that's something at some stage, if you wish, I can dilate upon what it is I mean. And that probably will come through your quantum physics challenge to me. From my Davies lens, we are all children of the Devi. So when we kill each other, we are killing brothers and sisters. That's how I see it. To me, when I look at it, there is no real boundary in that stage, sense, and we'll come back to that. So that's fratricide, and this. And again, it's techno-financed. You can see huge amount of fratricide happening just in the last 100 years. With technology being revved up and fired up just for this purpose. I don't need to go into that either. The last thing we talked, so that's fratricide. So we have ecocide, we have evidence of that, and where that comes in, we have evidence of where fratricide has happened and continues to happen with all the small wars. The 20-year small war of Afghanistan, for example, is just one of them. There are many wars right now, even now, which are not being covered, that are happening. That sometimes the Devi just opens up and shows me seriously, because I get people from refugee camps reaching out to me as a life coach. Like, for example, in North Africa, in different parts of Africa, and there are huge wars happening, all funded by different people. So that's that's the fratricide that's continuing. And the third point of suicide in the sense of how autonomy and agency has been taken away from individuals, individual humans, through technology. And as you said, rightly said, AI and biotech increasingly, and that is the biggest threat. Our autonomy, our ability to think for ourselves is going to continue to decrease. It started actually at the printing press level, and at some point in time, we may come back to it. By the way, there's so much to say. I will not try to compress it, or I'll just summarize these points. Okay. So the technology that we have in AI and biotech, the way it is going, it's controlled by very few people. The techno-financial chiefs, shall we say. I don't want to use the word oligarchs. It can be a red flag. But there are very few of them who control this, and the rest of us will be below the API, the automated programming interface, and that will be more and more, not less and less, as you see it already. And that's to your subtitle of the need for rescue. So my thing is, we first have to prove that there is a need for rescue, and only then can we go to the next step of can we as Hindus have an offering to how to rescue. So as I see it, in the next 10 to 30 years, and my concern is more of for my children and grandchildren especially, where will they be? The likelihood of them being under the API is much more, because fewer and fewer people would really be required to generate the software and the hardware. Again, the hardware is controlled by the same people. We should talk sometime about the semiconductor supply chain, which is actually controlled by very few American companies. It's not out there anywhere else. That's one of the aspects. And same thing with biotech. You've seen it for yourself. The control of the vaccines. They say, oh, someone in India is producing the vaccines, but the components come from the US, and they can choke it off anytime. Um, uh, so. Um, that aspect, the suicide aspect, it's in full scale. That's what's happening right now. I think someone has to tell me, am I over 10 or 12 minutes, Sanjay ji?
That's I just gave you a rough kind of
Yeah,
there's nothing hard
but
and
we have to
fast.
continue. The thing is, this is something I've done over many years, so I can keep talking. So please go
Okay,
ahead.
so this is wonderful in the sense that you made it so simple. These are issues that we have been grappling with, and especially this whole peer review system that we keep wondering about,
Mm-hmm.
and which I think Vibhuti Ji, in fact, may be advocating in his own job that he performs, that we need peer review. So that peer review is made so simple, that whole knowledge production system that got monopolized, and that uh, I think that also partly explains the reason why they so viciously attacked the Indian traditions, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe they have understood the Indian traditions better than we have done in the 20th and 21st century. And I can
Mm-hmm.
see that way the passion with which people like what's his name, Bishop Caldwell and G.U. Pope and Robert D. Nobili went about their task trying to divide India into Aryans and Dravidians and Lemuria and Gondwana and things like that. Absurd things, absolutely. But they've stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I often put it in a different framework of social theory.
Mm-hmm.
So, but uh, that also seems to run parallel to the framework that you are proposing, or the framework in which you are placing all these things. And I placed it in the framework of the beginning of what we call uh, science, which is, of course, as a result of coming out of the dark ages as well. And a lot of it has to do with the knowledge that they stole from the East, as seems to be uh, proved fairly well, but not accepted by the peers, of course. Some of it accepted also. Like now they accept that, okay, calculus has come from Madhvacharya and things like other theorems have a prior Indian footprint. So I look at the definitive change in the mechanistic universe model, the Cartesian universe that was proposed by Descartes and taken forward by Newton.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Newton, when we talk about Newton, then you do have this Royal Academy of Sciences already. And he proposed a kind of universe in which individual paths became very important, and also proposed the superlinear time theory, which actually the Christians had decreed in, I think, in the sixth or fifth or sixth Nicene Council. I think probably 553 or something. That was the time when they placed a curse on the cyclical time. And 553, fifth council, I think. So Newton gave it a definite shape. That was gobbled up by the social theorists who came up with the various individual rights theory, the social theories, the uh, contract, and then, of course, they transformed the divine state, of which the church was an agency, to the state. So state became an agency of God, the Christian God. And then we come down to the beginning of the 20th century, when first Einstein with his special theory of relativity, and then the quantum physics revolution of 1925 and thereabouts, they took it closer to the Indian theory of a harmonized universe. Because when you say that, okay, what is quantum theory? Is that what is it? I forget the uh, superposition of the uh, superposition of mm, well, I'm just forgetting the exact term. I think you can help me with that. So when we get this kind of superposition, which is basically a harmonious construction, the social theory continues regardless in the same linear formation. Quantum physics basically does away with the linear time, and as our my friend Dr. C.K. Raju would say, that says that it is quasi-cyclical. So that's what the proposition have become, and of course, Dr. Subhash Kak has now come with the e-dimensional theory. And if that e-dimensional theory ultimately holds true, then all the mysteries will be solved, and we will come to that same old concept of Indian system where the world first expands and then contracts and then expands and then contracts, the Kalpa system as we have. My question to you is that how is it that social theory has been allowed to continue unabated in that same linear form, and not just allowed to continue unabated, it's gone into an extreme of these individual theories, coming down to the cultural Marxism, postmodernism, and what have you, the radical theories, and now, of course, the woke theory. Of course, wokeism is not a theory but a practice, I guess. So, do you think that we have a solution to change this paradigm completely?
Okay, that's very, very interesting set of questions you have come up with. Great challenge. I love this interaction, by the way. So, so starting back when he talked of intellectual piracy, there was indeed intellectual piracy. The piracy was not just about economic and material things. There was intellectual piracy. The thing about intellectual piracy is when they take something, some knowledge as a superficial knowledge, without the basis and the roots, and they try to graft it with something, it doesn't work. Over time, it withers away. Which is what you have seen, whether it's calculus and especially about psychology, about Advaita philosophy, etc. They try to graft it, come up with some synthetic solutions. And when I say they, have to be very careful. It's those who are enthralled, those humans who are enthralled, and because of the localized samskaras, which do not allow them to progress beyond the third chakra. They are not able to see the bigger picture because of the dogmas they are under. They are unable then to appreciate and connect with the foundation. So to your question, let me say after the quantum physics happened, I'll answer that specific questions and then I'll hand it back to you. There has been indeed a schism. There has indeed been schism, and that's something that many people do not see. In fact, because of that schism, the academia in the West itself is under severe stress. They have to keep coming up with tropes to defend themselves, and that there are many people, many PhDs out there who have left academia and within the Western framework who are attacking this social theory, and you see that schism playing out as it did. They will use the word New Age, etc. But that was a schism. That indeed was a schism. That socially at the ground level, people have stopped accepting, and that's one of the things that I say. The rescue comes in because you know what, Americans at the ground level do not respect Western academia. Okay, they see Western academia as careerists who keep coming up with tropes, who are in fact the high priests for the establishment. And what is it that is continuing to fund them? It is the same people who are funding the techno-financial materialism. So that's what's happening. To answer your question, it is falling apart. Modernity is falling apart. And the interesting and amazing thing is, people in India are trying to catch up to this modernity. It has gone far beyond that. This thing has collapsed and is collapsing, and that's what my main message is. Okay, we are in the middle of this unraveling, which is why the quote-unquote elites, the political, the socio-cultural elites in America are unable to work with each other. They do not have the foundational grounds after what happened in the 1920s and 30s with quantum physics. It is true. So, to your question, it takes time, right? It takes time to do the transformation, and increasingly every time when you see them trying to bring the consideration of uncertainty, of variance, of black swan. Okay, those are all attempts. Those are all attempts to bring this new way of looking at the world into the world of modernity, to structure it. So, for example, the Markowitz theorem of variance and risk analysis. Okay, where they know that data can move around, and yet they try to come up with some theorems about trying to control the variance and so forth, and it doesn't work. And over again that has happened. So where was I? Have I answered your question? Would you like to take it away and come back to me? So my answer to your question, basically in summary, is it's happening. It has been unraveling, and hence the crisis they are having. Hence they are not able to lead, even though they were the only superpower, etc. Lead in the world because now they know the world is increasingly quote unquote uncertain. They are unable to put their finger to it. They can have the biggest possible weapons, etc. But the thing out there, the baby is playing with them.
Devi is playing with them.
That's true.
Vibhuti Ji, do you have any question? So you can,
Do I have any question? Today we decided actually that we will listen to more to Jayant Ji's elucidation of the thought processes. Actually, one of the guests has commented that today I am only an appearance guest. So, so we need some humor or some moments like this, that we need to know and learn from the erudite minds of people like Jayant Ji and theories of that. But I have a quick question on that. A quick question is, you talked about enlightenment, you talked about the Royal Academies of Sciences and all the established. Question number one is, why did we not? Why, despite the storehouse of knowledge and wisdom, living in our Vedas and Gitas and everything else, why didn't we build institutions like that? And I'm not talking about a destructive institution, but ownership of something. You know, there are sometimes when your strength becomes your weakness, then it is a time to begin to reflect on ourselves. So let's put it this way. Gitas are instruments, Gitas and Vedas are instruments of Dharma and enlightenment. But we never talk about it. The world doesn't know what we had to offer. But we are talking about enlightenment in Europe, which was not an enlightenment, which was essentially putting us into the dark hole. You know, that's what it is. They made us our texts are instruments of Dharma and enlightenment. Their texts are instruments of tyranny. If you look at it, my way or highway. This is what the challenge an ordinary Hindu faces. Because ordinary Hindu faces an institutional and individual threat.
Right.
At all levels.
Yeah.
And that's why we end up becoming, because we do not understand our own texts, we end up becoming dhimmis, chalo yaar maan gaye baat, theek hai tum hi sach ho. And we give in. That is the cause of our undoing, I feel. Though, because look at it this way, you are a life coach, and I will come to my second and last question would be about life coaching, because I know that in many years ago, somebody said that Hindus need to study Vedas and Mahabharata and Gita. All the answers to life's problems are right there. Issues are right there, but we don't study. So the question that comes to my mind is very simple, that, this entire freedom and subjugation battle that we have, so we are the true believers in freedom. Theirs is a way of subjugation. My book, my way. There is no other alternative. How do we contest that entire thing as a part of the process?
Okay, so help me by holding on to your first few questions and let me respond to your last one. Okay.
Now you're throwing me a challenge, a googly, that I can't remember my own question.
You expect, yeah. We are both of an age where you remember Chandrasekhar, right? The googly bowler.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, that's perfectly fine. I will definitely come back. If I find that question is not answered, I'll come back to that.
Yeah. So basically the last one. Let me specifically talk about what this study is that you're talking about. We need to study, right? Because we are not people of the book or books or library of books. We are actually practitioners. So what does practice mean? Let me give you the example of the most recent example, okay, of what is it that threatens, because that would take me back to the statement that Sanjay ji made. They seem to be threatened. Western academia seem to be threatened. What is it that is threatening them? One of the presentations in DGHC was about how Chinmaya Mission was the base foundation institution which is generating Hindutva people. Okay, and that assertion has been made. And so, what is it about Chinmaya Mission that they are so threatened about? Do you know what it is? It's what Swami Chinmayananda said. Swami Chinmayananda said, our main Chinmaya Mission's main objective is to make Hindus into practitioners. Okay, if you make Hindus into practitioners, that's it. That's all you need to do. What does it mean? And it will loop back to the question of quantum physics. So what does it mean to become a practitioner? So what Swami Chinmayananda and Chinmaya Mission does, it brings people together in satsang, okay, and through the process of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, right? You listen, you contemplate, and see what works and helps you to navigate the samsara. So the process is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Everyone is at a different level. We go there and we do it. So what happens in a satsang over Shiva? 6-month period. If one does those satsangs, one starts experiencing Sakshi Bhava. Sakshi Bhava is not difficult to experience, by the way. So Sakshi Bhava is the foundation. It is that which connects us all. Okay, we have the key to that. We have the key to connecting with Sakshi Bhava, even if it is cervical. It is cervical samadhi. It is not nirvikalpa. Okay, and that goes to your other question of why we have not institutionalized, etc. That's I will give my view of that. But that cervical samadhi, even if twice a month you get into a short satsang, okay, that satsang is the connection which will connect all of us, and that's what Chinmaya Mission does. It simply gives discourses that people listen to. Okay, it, without knowing, perhaps you connect with that Sakshi Bhava, and that Sakshi Bhava connects us all. If you want Hindu unity, you have to make Hindus into practicing Hindus. And practicing Hindus, we are practitioners, we are not studiers. And one of the grouses within Chinmaya Mission, is that a lot of people come and become professional listeners. They do not go beyond Shravanam. They don't do Mananam and Nidhidhyasanam, so practically use it somewhere. And that is where the break happens. But to the extent those people who go beyond Shravanam into Mananam and Nidhidhyasanam, they feel the connection. Couple of times a month you connect, you get energized, you see the world differently, right? And you start seeing the world differently, you start interacting with the world differently. You're no longer a materialist, and the materialist can't threaten you. You are then free. That freedom comes in. Okay, you don't even argue, you just go doing things, because suddenly you start sensing, you know what, the devas are real, the divya shaktis are real, it's happening. And that is practicing Hindu. Okay, when you actually connect with the divya shakti. So can you hold your questions, or what should I do now? Because I can go on this thread a little bit more. So
please do.
What is this Sakshi Bhava? So this Sakshi Bhava is where that quantum theory comes in, where in Mandukya Upanishad, these are very difficult things, so I have noted it down, by the way. Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.1. I'm not sure I should recite the words, etc. There's a Mundaka Upanishad which talks about two birds, and it's just one line where it talks about two birds sitting on the same tree, and there is sayujam, there is contact, complete contact, and these are two beautiful birds, and one of them eats the fruits of that tree, and the other is just observing. Okay, so we have both. We have the Sakshi and the eater of the fruit. The eater of the fruit is the samsarin. Okay, and Adi Shankara, in his commentary, takes it all the way through. He says it's actually the tree that he's talking about is actually a limb, the prana limb, and the tree has roots up there. If you remember chapter 15, it talks about the vruksh, the upside down vruksh.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So that's where it is. So on that tree, these are the two birds. So to your question about quantum physics, that's where we have quantum physics, right? So basically, as soon as the witness observes something, the material event happens, right? Because prana is just pulsation, right? As soon as the observer observes something, the material event precipitates. That is
right. That is the observer in the quantum physics situation.
That's right.
And the material event, that superposition, etc., is so confusing. You go to Mundaka Upanishad, you read your Shankaracharya's commentary. He explained it so well in 2 verses. So that is it. Once you start looking at that, right? So now, how do we? What do we do? We have so many tools. Okay, we have tantra. So how does this Sakshi and the actor bird, the Jiva, how do they connect? They connect through Shakti. So what is that Shakti? So if you read the Lalita Sahasranam, I believe it is 658, which says Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Swarupini. Yeah. So that Jiva has a Ichha Shakti. It is given an Ichha Shakti, right? It's given also Jnana. But if that Jnana is not used, the Kriya that happens, the act that happens, right? It just enmeshes you in the samsara, right? Now, Tantra also went many steps further and said, okay, you know what? In the abstraction, and eventually both someone like Adi Shankara and Sri Ramana had to come back to Lalita Sahasranam and understand it. because one has to understand what the human manifestation is. What is the human manifestation, and how, unless we understand our own nature, we can't really start understanding how we are interacting with our samsara in the material world, and it's only through that that we can speak to it. Now, Vedanta does talk about Shariratraya. The Shariratraya is, we have three levels of bodies, right? We have the Sthula Sharira, we have the Sukshma Sharira, and we have the Karan Sharira. Right? In his interpretation of these verses of Mundaka Upanishad, he clearly talks about Sukshma Sharira and how the prana gets enmeshed in the Sukshma Sharira and starts eating of the samsara. He doesn't talk as much about the Karan Sharira. I'm bringing in the Karan Sharira and the contribution of the tantras about the chakras, about how prana. It's not that it is an abstract and it just suddenly comes into something called Sukshma Sharira and goes away. They delineated it because the stool projection that we have, right? In that context, once we have the cognitive shift, it becomes very easy to see that even space-time is our own projection, right? It's our own projection. And in this space-time, there are all these contours that happen, and we have this sense of materiality at different levels. And that basic materiality, they say it's at the Muldhara level, and we want to recreate and reproduce that, and that's the Swadhisthana. And we have the need to control it then, and that's the Manipura, and that's where we are currently in the social structure. The social theory I talk about is that we can actually use this kind of social theory of what human is. The human is much more complex than the Cartesian human, which is a reductive, one-point centered human. And since they try to come, the three chakra people, the dogmatic materialists, they try to come and try to understand these chakras, and they fail because they don't have the roots that we have, we just talked about. So to come to your question, back to your question, why is it that we don't seem to have created these institutions, the state-making process, right? The state-making process, because the state-making process is required at the third chakra level of needing to control. If we understand how Rita is, what Rita is, which is what the Veda keeps talking about, the Rita is the cosmic pulsations that are happening. When we go back into the Sakshi Bhava and understand the pulsations that are happening, we can actually dance with it, right? That's what Nataraja does. That's what the dance teaches us. So we can dance with it. We had learned to dance with it. Okay. Now I have a theory. In my essay, I talk about bifocal lens, and then somewhere along the line, we got so enmeshed in this beautiful dance. We were doing the dance every day. When we talk, quote unquote, do rituals, etc., we were actually dancing daily with the cosmic calendar, the cosmic cycles, the sun, the moon, the earth, the planets, the nakshatras. We were dancing with it beautifully. That was our civilization. We got lost. You know where? Because we graduated up to the 4th, 5th, and 6th chakras. I don't even talk about 7 chakras. The Moksha Shastra tells us how to go to the 7th chakra, from Savikalpa to Nirvikalpa. But when we forget that there are these other 3 chakras in the human manifestation, we have to stabilize ourselves somewhere along the line. Okay, we stopped updating and innovating. We entered a local optima. That's how I say. That's my hypothesis. Okay. We entered a local optima. Okay, anyone who knows biology or even AI, they'll know what a local optima is. And it's very difficult to get out of the local optima. And we can see we actually did that. Our gurus told us not to cross the oceans, not to go out there and get the intelligence. The Brahmins were not allowed to go out. If they go out, they were excommunicated, literally. So the intelligence was not gathered. that there were viruses being produced elsewhere, they're going to come to attack us. We didn't have the inoculations, social inoculations for that, because we were completely decentralized, dancing the Rita. That is my answer at this moment. And I say in the book, every day that I chant the Lalita Sahasranam and other things, something opens up. So this is work in progress. This is as of today.
Just one thing, Sanjay ji, I just wanted to step in here, because we have talked about that making Hindutva rule the world again, take over. What it appears from what you say and from what I gather is that the Western and others, I would put it in that category, they have done a better Purva Paksh of us and our knowledge base. And that's how they have hijacked the whole thing. Because, it's very remarkable. The entire coaching industry, entire life coaching industry in America, the sutra lies in the chapter 18, shlok 14 and 15 of Bhagavad Gita. Create the platform, individual, means and tools, effort, and then divine. That is the truth there. What we have forgotten is our own. So while we were propagating our values, we did not prepare for the virus that was coming to attack us or is attacking us. So how do we, in the modern parlance, I believe, personally speaking, the time for Sanatan Dharma and our principles to rule the world in the mind perspective and knowledge perspective has arrived. Who will lead this in the absence of an institutional framework?
So let me start with saying I do not agree that they hijacked. They did not hijack. They did not understand. They do not understand it. Okay, and they think they understand it. They are pirates. So they try to use it.
Just to clarify, hijack doesn't mean that they took it and imbibed it. They just looted us. They took it.
That is true. That is true. So to your second question, the answer I have at the moment, based on my experience with Chinmaya Mission and what they're doing, is, from my perspective at least, here's an institution which creates practicing Hindus, and the more practicing Hindus there are, the more they will be able to come together to create the answers that you're looking for. Given my background and where I come from, I'm more of a process person. I do not wish to be. I don't think coming up with solutions is the answer, because after all, we are decentralized process people. We have to seek guidance and see what comes out of it. The more and more Hindus become practitioners, they work with each other, ask themselves these questions, small insights will come up, and small ways it will get built. As I said, I can suggest processes of how to do that in more detail in life coaching, etc. And in my own experience as a life coach, every individual is different. It's very interesting. Some of the mass gurus, many of the people who come to me have been with them for a very long time. But those are cookie cutter solutions. Each individual is their prana is different. One has to do diagnosis of the prana to understand where they are, so that they are helped to go forward, and their own karmas, etc. So I hope I've answered your question. In general, the institution building comes when there are two things happen. There's a felt need, and there seems to be a felt need, and there is an opportunity. Clearly, you are right. There is an opportunity, as I see it, where the schema that has been put together in the last 350 years is falling apart. But we are ignorant. When Swami Vivekananda said, "Arise, awaken," and someone else said, "You have not, because you have nothing to lose but your ignorance." But we have to lose our ignorance to be able to actually arise and awaken, right? And then come up with ways of doing it. And I think the maximum number of Hindus is in India. You need that gravitas. You need that heaviness. And I see the hope based on some of the things that Sanjay ji said in his book, that's where it will happen. That's where the institutional building will start happening as more and more Hindus in India awaken. Okay, but the rest of us outside cannot wait for that to happen either. So we have to work on our own on the institution building. Okay, so if I may respond to that, I don't know what your time is doing, Sanjay ji, to that specific thing. The key institution that we have are devasthanas that no one has. Devasthana with prana pratishtha is a powerful thing, very powerful thing. So it's absolutely amazing the number of devasthanas that have been that have prana pratishtha in the US. That itself has changed things. The more of us interact through that, and build out the institutions around it. Where were the pathshalas? They were with the village devasthanas, right? I call it devasthana, sthana where deva is, right? It's very clear what that is. So the institutions are there. We have to build it out. Whether it's the pathshala, whether it is funding for certain kind of research, because you know what, the devas by the power seem to be able to attract a lot of funding. That's how I see it. And we have to interact with the devas and ask their permission to use the funds that they have. It's their funds, not the funds of the trustees, to work at institution building. And again, we have to learn through this Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. But that is our core institution, which cannot be replicated by anyone. And I'm not saying us and them. It's very, very important that we are all humans. We are children of the Devi. We have been blessed with this knowledge, and those who have been blessed with that knowledge have to work upon it, and so that they become strong enough to share with others and open up a process of naturalization, so that those who are not born Hindu can also become Hindu through naturalization, if they wish to, as we make that platform. But that is our challenge, yes.
Okay, that's a very, very interesting take, and you're almost 1 hour. So I take you to the last part, how we take it, how we take the world. Because when we say that make Hindutva rule the world, we make Hindutva rule the world only if the essential of Hindutva, that is the cyclical time, the multi-valued logic, the Pramana Shastra, where the Pratyaksha Pramana holds its head high. When these values actually, uh, when these values overtake the world, at that time that the definition of quantum physics, now I get it, a superposition of amplitude waves, that comes true.
Right,
So,
and that can be done by us only through practice. We have to practice it. We have to become it. We have to be the model, so that then people want to come onto that platform, right? Do you agree?
yeah, that's fine. So, would you prescribe a framework for this?
The prescription is not my is not my, how shall I put it, forte. I would rather not a solution but a process. I would rather not prescribe a solution. I would prescribe a process, and the process, just like it was done in the past. Like for example, the conversation between Adi Shankara and Mandana Mishra, which then he became Sureshwara, right? That was between Advaita and the dualist. And we can take it the other way around and say, what is it about Advaita which did not help us? And we can have those conversations. We can have intellectual ferment, the process that is required and do it around Devasthanas. Never let go of that. But we need to have intellectual ferment, not and that ferment. So that Ichha Shakti becomes Jnana Shakti before we act, the Kriya Shakti. And there are that would be my recommendation. That there has to be the prescriptive process should be an intellectual ferment, where people with different perspectives, darshanas, come together in a respectful manner to come up with, okay, this is the problem, rather than shooting down each other and how superior their guru was, etc., to say going forward how it has to be done. And out of that intellectual ferment, because that's to your point also, Vibhuti Ji, they had the Republic of Letters. You may have read the Republic of Letters, and how the intellectuals in Europe interacted with each other at distances before they came up with it. So that would be, I mean, that's my card on the table, shall we say. Now, I would love to hear your
can it
perspective.
be reduced to a theory, a social theory, as we are proposing?
Oh yeah, so the social theory, yes, the social theory I talk about is what is a human manifestation. The human manifestation, right? The human manifestation. There are three shariras, right? So we have to connect with that. We constantly have to keep that in mind. That we have the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. Okay, that is our model. We collapse it and reduce it, and then once we have that model and we accept that model, and we say talk about the chakras and what the tantrics did, and what they do and how successful they are, it actually works. So what is it that works? And the social theory being what you have to satisfy the Ichha of the Muldhara, the Ichha of the Swadhisthana, the Ichha of the Manipura, before you start going to the fourth, fifth, and sixth chakras. You cannot have courage and compassion unless the foundation is laid. That's the social theory. You have to have a society which has those. Okay, you can't have the proficiency and lucidity in language. We have problems with language, don't we? Because we are trying to aim at the fifth chakra without bringing up the first three chakras, and that's where the fight is. And certainly the big view, the sixth chakra, which gives us the wisdom and the big view. All our gurus are sitting there, but we haven't done the work of the first three chakras. So, which is why I say it's not a question of either or, it's an and also. What came out of Europe, out of their dark need, out of their dark age of saying, just to survive, we have to go from the first chakra to the second to the third chakra. And they stabilized there. But they gave humans the ability at least to fire up the three chakras. We have the knowledge to fire up all the chakras, but we have so much dissension among us, we don't even think of a model. And this is my model, this is my theory. Okay, use this model, and it's there in Vedanta, right? It's there in Vedanta, the Sharira Traya. Okay, the chakras and how prana comes into the Sukshma chakra and channels, the pulsations channel through the chakras at different levels, where different level of materiality comes up. It's there. It's all there. And those who do Advaita Vedanta don't want to see that other thing. They don't consider the other thing. And the Tantrics do their own thing. And Tantrics, especially the Devi Shakti people, have been completely sidelined. The knowledge that was acquired, the action knowledge, okay, because after all, it says the Devi is the one who takes it from Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti to Kriya Shakti in a focused manner so that we can reclaim it. And to the extent the entire Shakta area has been sidelined, and so much value has been given to a certain kind of Vedanta, as I see it, that has not really helped us or humans in general. That blessing that we were given. Right? Because if you look at Krishna, Sri Krishna, he's a Purushottama because he shows you his actions through all the chakras. He shows you his actions through all the chakras, right? Not just his sixth chakra and the seventh chakra, which Arjun can't take when he shows them.
That's so brilliant because Sanjay ji, I know time is out for both of us and all of us. And
but this is
given the fact-
fascinating.
it is fascinating. That's why you can't help smiling and talking. You talked about Krishna, and I was talking to you about chapter 18, Shlok 14 and 15. That's the ultimate knowledge there, right? It's only when the body, speech, mind, and everything is in sync with each other. And that's you are referring to chakra from top to toe.
Right, because we have the knowledge in much, much more detail than the reductive knowledge of that Advaita Vedantists or Vedantists talk about. They are my gurus, okay, and they're listening, and I'll forward them this at their feet. But I say we have to critique it as well. Many people at Chinmaya Mission also, they have to critique it, and they have to say we have much more detailed knowledge than that. We can help us. So it's not a question of motivating people to go to nirvikalpa, to moksha. We first have to stabilize ourselves for the first 3 levels before we start going there. And we have that detailed knowledge. We don't have just the knowledge of attaining moksha. Sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No. I mean, I would urge every viewer to go to.
I'll take a follow-up.
Sure. Please.
I have a follow-up on this. Is that because you talked about Tantra, and of course, you talked about Kashmir. There's a thing called just curiosity. I have no knowledge of this. The Vijnana Bhairava Tantra was highly praised by Osho, and he also wrote something about it. What is this Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, and why is it so highly recommended by great seers?
It's pretty straightforward, actually. The Vijnana Bhairava Tantra allows you to do dharana. Straightforward. Concentration. Okay. So it allows you to focus and concentrate. And in the process, it doesn't come to everyone. You read Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, you deconstruct it and work on it. And over a period, so the first level is just physical concentration, right? And then you start learning even the mantra swarupa, because you get you can invoke the deva within you in the form of mantra, which is what? It's a vibration. So initially you invoke as Vaikhari, right? Vaikhari, you say it aloud.
Yeah,
right?
The 4 levels, yeah.
Right, and then Madhyama, and then Pashyanti. So in the same way, the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra basically shows you the way to do your concentration, to do dharana. That's it. You get to a point of doing dharana. So to do dharana, of course, you have to create space for yourself, space and time to do it. Okay, and it is a powerful method in itself. The Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is a very powerful method to get to dharana, which is pre-samadhi.
Pre-samadhi. Actually, you're quite right, because pratyahar is fine, but getting to dharana seems to be very, very difficult. I mean, I haven't managed it. So,
it requires space and time, which is why, yes. So at least getting the sense of Sakshi, simple sense of Sakshi, and that electric connection through simple practices can convert people, not convert, but make Hindus into Hindu practitioners, But then those of us who then want to go to that next level can indeed go to the Vigyan, Bhairav Tantra, etc. But all these are targeted, you see, at individuals. And my thing was, we have to make this into a social theory of how people interact with each other, right? We did have that in a decentralized manner, which is the cosmic calendar. Panchang is a powerful way, a powerful vehicle in which through which we interacted with each other. Everyone said, okay, how did Kumbh Mela come about? There was no wireless communication going around, right? Everyone observed that in this tithi, in this particular samvatsara, right, this is where we are going to meet, right? And everyone in every village, every Brahmin used to track the cosmic calendar for however many years, and then they say, okay, this is the day, right? In a decentralized manner, we were in Rita, that dance that I spoke about, right? So we
Cosmic
do
dance,
have,
the Nataraja dance, yeah.
we have to do that. That's where we have to go eventually. But and to build that institution without being attacked, without being vulnerable, because we are so immersed in that dance. Did I answer your question about Vigyan
Yes.
Bhairav Tantra? Yeah.
Yes, you did. Unfortunately, we are now going out of time, and I think we'll probably need many more sessions with you. It does look like that. So I think let this be the first part of those sessions, and let us go to the audience questions now, because the audience is also waiting very patiently. And my formal request to all the viewers to please like this video, to share it around, as well as to go to our description, look at our links, look at our subscription models, look at our contribution links, and support us. Okay, Abhishek, AI and hardware combo was discovered by many Indian scientists who were found dead, and their death was brushed under the carpet by erstwhile governments. Well, that's an observation, not really a question. So thank you, Abhishek, for that observation. Poonam B. Who are the peers? Those who drink beer and smoke churut, eat beef sandwiches, kebabs together 5 days a week. Upholding linear theory explains DHG, dismantling global Hindutva, DGH, I think, and its virulence.
That is dismantling Hindutva globally. That's why it is called DHG.
Again, I think you're right. So, who are the peers? The peers are the ones who were originally appointed and all their successors. So that lineage continues. There is a literal lineage of those who adhere to certain dogma and have a certain materialist lens, and they are. It's an exclusive club to which they are admitted. So, what other characteristics they have, one doesn't know, and one can there can be perfectly people who are vegan also there, especially these days. But that doesn't mean they are any less dogmatic uh, uh, or materialist. And also to the question, the woke people are simply repeating the dogmas in different ways. They are as dogmatic, though they look very confused because the noise, the academia, Western academia, is losing the sense, especially since the 1930s, of what how to pin down reality.
Okay, just an aside. Have you
Mhm.
coached any woke?
By the time they come to me, these woke people, by the time they go, it becomes very different. People who come to me because of very basic needs, right? Very basic needs. So the basic needs quite frankly, are young Hindu Americans and their friends who are non-Hindu Americans as well, who come to me and we do the whole thing. We do chanting, etc., one-on-one basis. So they come either because they want to know what their next job is going to be, or when they are going to get married.
I didn't know you were an astrologer too.
You know, since you say that, Jyotish is one of the most powerful tools in the hands of the right people.
Yes,
Actually,
but to find the right people is very difficult.
Yes, I agree. And it's only a diagnostic tool. It's not a predictive tool. The moment you start using for prediction, it'll go wrong. It's a diagnostic tool. It's a tool for opening up the conversation so that to help them understand their own prana. And when woke people come to me and I start talking to them about what their prana is, the pulsation is, the whole process is of getting to know their own nature, right? And when they see, yes, this is what works, this is how it happens, and you can show how that pattern will keep repeating itself. And that's when they say, yes, so now, Jayantji, what can I do? So that's to answer your question, yes. But then when they write to me, I ask them, sorry?
I was heavily into Jyotish once,
Uh-huh.
and then I gave up predicting because I said no.
Yeah. No, it's not for prediction. I mean, that's what I say. It's not for prediction. If you start predicting, the Devi will make sure you're wrong.
Quite right. Yeah. It's a divine function.
You are trying to get into her territory. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. This is the reason I gave up, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Chaitanya, namaste to both the sirs. And do you think since Indian society was open and anyone could do business and work here, should India allow all countries to come and work in India like a free trade with the world?
well, we did it once and we know what happened. So, we were the original open borders country, right? Look what happened to us.
We were, but
We were.
the Purva Paksha was very important, and we did not learn about our enemies. As I think Karl Popper paradox, unlimited tolerance must result in the end of tolerance. This is what we did. Next. Viral Patel, totally agree with Sir Jayant Kalawar. How do you pronounce this? Kalawar or Kalawar?
Kalawar.
Kalawar, okay, Jayant Kalawar. I totally agree with Sir Jayant Kalawar. Western academia is under extreme pressure, and so they target easy prey. And we all know who it is. Well, yes, a good observation. Not really a question, and very excellent observation, Viral Patel ji. Next, Jayant ji, Chaitanya. Jayant ji, do you think BJP should start fighting elections in Europe and Asia covertly and spread Hindutva, as RSS is already in foreign countries? But the RSS in India is saying that we should give up Devis and Devatas. This is what the Pujaniya Sar Sangachalak ji is saying these days. So I don't know how they will do that in Europe.
Yeah, I don't know enough about. Yeah, I think you said it right. I don't know enough about RSS and BJP because they're very specific questions to answer it. Who or what is this BJP and RSS? And
No,
what
but
they
I
should
say that I think they need to be coached first. They're
so,
completely oblivious of these things. Free mind. Hindus are disconnected with their books. The complete works by Swami Vivekananda is a good introductory course. Question mark. It's in English and language is simple. This is the question actually.
you can start anywhere, and the thing is, if you do it with Shraddha, it will start leading you. You can whether it is complete works by Swami Vivekananda or a gospel according to Ramakrishna. I would, if you have to go with something from that, I would say go back to Gospel according to Ramakrishna and read the stories. The thing about stories, whether it's Purana or even the Gospel according to Ramakrishna, is they are stories, and you just read them, and you do the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Shravanam just doesn't mean just the listening. The reading is also Shravanam. So start there.
Okay, excellent suggestion. Rahul Bhatia, any social theory that is not based on experience will fail since it's a lie. Truth can be known by everyone, but full truth can be seen by only some. You agree?
Yeah. So that's an assertion. I mean, there so much complexity in this, not based on experience. So who's the one who's experiencing? Who's the experiencer? All that starts coming in. So we have talked about it. So I
Okay,
would know. Yeah.
let's move on. Next one. Suresh Gandham, Western institutions, monotheism, state corporation plus academia, etc., and their global systems of power and control seem unstoppable. Are we doomed to become completely synchronous with them? Is decoupling the only answer?
Um, I don't see them as unstoppable. In fact, they're unwinding. I mean, if we change our perspective and see how badly they're unwinding, they can't even go in and do something in one little state or one little area called Afghanistan. I don't know what's unstoppable about them. So I think the parade that Taliban did with their little AK-47s and IEDs after they captured Kabul tells the story. I don't. Clearly, they were stoppable. So.
Okay, next. Suresh Gandham again. Just read your essay. Okay. You introduced a new world. Thank you for your tapasya. Earlier, you touched on the role of our Brahmins in timekeeping. Would love to hear more on the Devasthana temple ecosystem in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next. Rishi, how one can become sthiti pragya in the absence of a guru?
Well, gurus themselves will tell you the ultimate guru is within you. If you start practicing without expectation of what the sthita pragya is, it starts opening up. The question is to get that first, start getting that first experience of sakshi bhava. It's not very difficult to get that experience of sakshi bhava, even if it is for a minute or two, and then we just simply keep following up. And they also say that when you're ready, the guru will present, and in whatever form. So that's also there, and it's true. So my suggestion would be go ahead and start the process. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, next question, Chaitanya. Mm, Jaswant ji or Jayant ji,
Hey, Jayant.
do you think Hinduism decentralization is its boon or bane, as it does not allow for unity but helps in surviving and not getting wiped out?
Um, the thing is decentralized on the stula level, but connected at the foundational level of practice of Sakshi Bhava. The beauty of it, and that's the story I often tell you, is the story that Sri Ramakrishna related. It takes quite a while to speak out, but basically the whole process of the Char Dham Yatra and what it did and how it got interrupted through modernity and introducing of railways, for example. Yes, there was decentralization, but there was also the underlying current. There are many bulbs, and the underlying current of electricity goes through all the bulbs and lights it up. That's one way of looking at it. Any metaphors fail. But there was a way in which people knew when to go for yatra at what time because of the panchans, which, by the way, as you know, with latitude and longitude and time zones, it changes. And we had this great way of doing it. Yes, we failed. The local optima we talked about, and the lack of intelligence gathering to see what's happening elsewhere in the world, because everyone was coming to us, you know, 5,000 years ago onwards, to take things from us. Um, yeah, have I answered? To me, it's not that it doesn't allow for unity. It allows for unity at a very ground level. We have to, all of us, practice, and we have to very specifically see the process which has been dividing us. When did we get into this process of division? I didn't want to start talking about endogamy, etc. I talk about endogamy rather than this other word that the Portuguese introduced. I don't even want to say it. Because the endogamy itself is a reaction to anarchy, where the state starts failing. We have to come together as first sampradayas, and within sampradayas as smaller groups that help each other. So that becomes a fallback. That's my theory about that. And that's where we got, because clearly the Rig Veda didn't have it. And by the time of the Buddha is the first time we start seeing references to endogamy. And 1500 years ago, it becomes everywhere. We have to go back a little bit and not just look at the last 800 years or so, but what happened when the Kushans came, when the Shakas came, and what happened then as well. So many interesting questions.
Okay. Poonavabi speakers from medical field in DHG session demolished Ayurveda, Tridoshas, Panchakoshas were silent about ghastly the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay.
Um, uh,
Any?
Yeah, I mean, it's a comment. I think the Ayurveda, etc. Yeah. The key, one of the key people who goes against Ayurveda, etc. Is a Ivy League based scholar who was trained through JNU, through Oxford, Cambridge, then came over to the Ivy League here. So there is a training channel. We'll see it repeatedly. The colonial colonizers training channel. And then they say all these things. Yes, this is true. I know of them.
Okay. Rishi, STG, as per Oak's research, Sugriv traveled entire globe. Then why this reluctance of not crossing ocean by medieval gurus?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that needs to be researched and understood. So the reason why we reached local optima, and what was this reaction to of circling our wagons? I do not have an answer to that question. Given how much knowledge we have, why did we go that way? I don't have an answer to that question. That is one thing we do need to understand for ourselves, need to do research on, so that we don't repeat it.
Okay, Viral Patel, sir. So when it comes to creating a narrative and attack, we find ourselves happy countering local puppets like Arfa, Swara, etc. But we don't attack masters sitting out. How are we going to make Hindutva rule by staying toad in the well?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do you? So,
Uh, I think if you heard the whole conversation, then I think Jayant ji is already given that answer. That ultimately is the process that we have to all get into, and that process shall yield the result. Have I put it right?
yes. Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Kundalini 1, 2, 3. Let's get to that first. Then we talk of
Yeah,
anything else. Yes.
quite right. Veral Patel again. We have the population. We can trade on our terms. Anyway, that's practical aspect. That's I think we are on a very very high level conversation, so I'll let it pass. Pat Broad. Can Hinduism survive without a global support ecosystem to defend and promote Dharma? Schools, should the supply chain, legal and self defense, etc.
Um, Given the extent of globalization, I would say both needs to be done. Each individual area needs to work in their own ecosystems and interact with each other. So the global Hindu concept has just come about, and we need to reach out. By the way, there are two things I would like to say in that context. I think that's a very good question. I would like to say yes, we have to do that. And then comes the question, what is the process of doing? One of the things we miss out is that the Hindu diaspora started a couple of hundred years ago when Hindus were taken to the Caribbean, the Fiji Islands, Mauritius, South Africa, and what happened to them. And that's something we have to research and find out and get in touch with them and see what their experiences have been so that we don't get into that same position. And incorporate them, include them, and find ways of including them. They are some of the most interested ones I find in getting to know and integrating and start practicing, becoming practicing Hindus. So, to the question, I think that's an excellent question. I do agree that a global Hindu uh, um, perspective is required, and clearly, I think the UK Hindus have done seem to have gone a little farther ahead because now they are into the fourth generation of at this stage. But we also need to think about how the Caribbean and the Fiji Islanders, etc., have survived and yet somehow continue to practice. I think that's something to learn from him also.
Chaitanya, Jayant, considering growing Sanatanis in Europe, do you think a Hindu Renaissance or a Sanatan sage would come from there? What are your thoughts?
Um, um, if it comes from there, wherever it comes from, we would have to think through a process of naturalization. It requires a considerable amount of a number of people to give that gravitas. So, which is why I said India has the possibility, though the leadership may or may not get us there. I don't know. I don't want to comment on that. But whether it's in Europe or in the US, we haven't come through with an idea of what naturalization looks like um, uh, to be practicing Hindus. And that naturalization process requires deconstruction. So what happens is this materialist dogmatist, and I've worked with them for the last 30 years, they come all excited, but they carry that materialist dogmatist framework in their mind, and they get very anxious, very paranoid at some stage when we start talking with them about uh, uh, Shariratraya, etc. They run to the therapist who tells them that's all false and they are making you mad, and they put them on chemicals. So I don't know. Unless people who are already comfortable, there are many of us who construct a platform so that we understand how to deconstruct. Now, Vedanta, one power that Vedanta has is to enable us to deconstruct because it asks us logical question. The existing framework mental model that we carry, only then those who are not acculturated may be able to naturalize themselves. I don't know whether I've explained it. but that's the difficulty I see. It's a process difficulty.
Okay, next. रॉबकुल नमस्ते। क्या भक्ति मार्ग जैसा कि इस्कॉन या अन्य संगठन अपनाते हैं उसमें कर्म अथवा प्रवृत्ति मार्ग की अपेक्षा निवृत्ति मार्ग को महत्व नहीं देते, ऐसा मुझे लगा है। मंत्र जप से मोक्ष पाने की होड़ में अधर्मियों से संघर्ष कैसे होगा? यू फॉलो हिंदी?
If you can, yeah, I follow Hindi, but that last sentence, what exactly is the question? Mantra jap se moksha पाने
की होड़ में, in the competition to get moksha through mantra japa, how will we fight the adharmis?
Yes, I mean, that is what I pointed out. We graduated and we started focusing on moksha rather than creating integrated humans. The whole idea of Dharma is support to create integrated humans. If you can use that word, integrated humans. We want to generate integrated humans. And then some of us may say, okay, I am over 70, now I want to try and go into the Bhairav Tantra and do Dharana, etc. You are maybe 25 years away from that, Sanjay ji, but someone like me can do it.
Thank you for the compliment. I retired from government service last year, by the way.
Oh, okay.
But my hair is natural. No?
Oh, okay.
Lest Vibhuti ji run me down.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Rishi Vijay ji, one more common DNA test. Audrey will marry Bhagavad Bhaijan. Oh, this is too naughty. This is too naughty.
Yeah, Rishi, your name.
Okay, Vijay ji, again addressed to Vibhuti ji. Out of curiosity, how come scholars like Jayant, Nilesh Oak, or you and others are not yet cancelled or deplatformed by the dem wokes yet?
They may be wokes, but they are not awoken yet. So that's another part of it. But I always believe that, there was a nice one I read. When God wants somebody destroyed or dead, he makes them mad. So you are seeing these mad people right now. So that's what is going to happen. So, just enjoy the ride. I am enjoying the ride. Thank you, Rishi.
Yeah. The wake-up call came too soon in Afghanistan. It's not even a year. The woke high point.
That's right.
The woke high point of December, and it's not even a year, and the wake-up call, everybody is being absolutely bamboozled into being,
That's right.
what should we say? Being made woke? No, they're already woke. So please devise a proper term. Vaibhav, great discussion. Do nations have collective memory? If yes, how do they manifest into credible actions? Any examples would help.
So, if I use my lens, Vaibhavji, so we all have memories. We all have memories, and when we share memories culturally with our local communities, with our kinship communities, sampradayas. And nations also at the state level would have collective memories. Now, if you use the chakra framework, the memories are at different levels. They're at the material level. They're at the level of Swadhisthana chakra, of how to reproduce and have a family, at the Manipura chakra, how to acquire and consume, etc. So the memories are at different levels, and that's one of the things our framework says. It doesn't allow you. Once you get into the framework and start using this lens, you will start dissecting it. So then your responses also are sharp, and they are not generic reductionist, as if human is just one thing and it has one memory. By the way, the problem with they are having with neuroscience. If I may take a few minutes,
Sure.
the problem that they are having with neuroscience is that in spite of literally hundreds of billions of dollars in research, they can't find out where these memories are. Where are these memories? The neurons seem to be moving around. They can't find memory points, because all they have working with in their heads is this Sula Sharir. They don't have this concept of Sukshma Sharir and Prana Sharir. And this Prana is sitting out there, okay, enveloping us. And it has, and the memories are in terms of pulsations and changing nature of pulsations. There are different levels of memories that are happening. And the neuroscientists have been struggling. You can read the papers and you'll see they don't know where the memories are and how is it working. Right? So
also they have
I
completely
want to
cancelled
answer.
the they have cancelled the para element of the they honor Vakari Madhyama and Pashyanti, but para they have cancelled.
Right. So basically, they are materialists. All they can see and observe is the sthula level, and our sharira is much more complex, and that's the knowledge we have.
Okay, next. Suresh Gandham, minor question about your essay. You do not seem to differentiate between the scientific method and Western scientism. Could you elaborate a little if we should conflate the two?
So the so-called scientific method, which they have said is their method, is just the capacity and capability of the human mind. And Western scientism is the Hadpawing, my Bombay Hindi. Maybe Vibhuti Ji will help me. Or, do you know what I mean?
Harpawing with grabbing, swallowing, eating up,
Right.
picturing,
Right.
all that stuff.
Yeah. Taking this quote-unquote scientific method, which is a very natural thing for humans. That's what humans do all the time. And saying it's ours and only we can tell you who can do what. That's the monopoly of knowledge production that they took over. And when they say only they can tell you what is science or not, that becomes scientism. But the quote-unquote scientific method, it's a very natural, iterative process of empiricism. And you'll see that all through Indian practices or Hindu practices.
Correct. The Indian epistemology puts Pratyaksha Pramana at number 1.
Yeah. So it's...
Next. Vivek Shukla, it was an absolute, I think he missed out something, discussion, I would say. Thank you, Vivek ji. P. Krishnamurthy, people say if we have to unite all Sanatanis, we need to reject Chaturvarna system. Given that it is mentioned that Varnashrama Dharma or Sanatana Dharma was made by Bhagwan himself, what do you have to say about such people? And if possible, please give the solution. If Varna can't be removed or rejected. Big fan, sir.
Who is this being addressed to?
I think it's addressed to you.
Oh, well.
Because you're the guest.
You just found a fan too.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, I say big fan. I have a certain perspective of when Varna became Jati and the endogamy came about. It's one thing to talk about certain characteristics of prana. Prana with its pulsation as one is born, it has nothing to do with who you're born to, etc. Has certain characteristics which can be perhaps described in terms of prana. And then samskaras impact on it. When samskaras impact on it, the prana changes. You can change the prana. So and that's the role of samsaras. I'm sorry, samskaras. That's a very important role of samskaras. So if you look at it in that empirical way of the of it, varna as the color of prana, which can be changed through samskaras, then it's a whole different thing. Then the varnashram, etc. How did it get so structured in a way to stabilize? Was it actually solution to stabilize the first three chakras so that everyone did that things and we don't have to talk about it, so that we can focus on the higher chakras? Again, those are the questions I do not have an answer to, because the insights I get from the absolutely beautiful, whether it's the Upanishads or the Sahasranamas, is completely different. It's more holistic, and it enables a social theory and way to live, which is far different from what we ended up seeing in the last 1500 years or so. That's
Okay. Next, okay, so that brings us to the end of the discussion. Thank you so much, Jayant ji. Thank you, Vibhuti
thank
ji,
you.
and thank you all the viewers. You kept us engaged for a very long time. It's an hour and 46 minutes of discussion. We didn't even realize that. And so thank you. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Jai Hind.
Vande Mataram.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.